a good point to look at. If you're using a credit card to pay off another credit card, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Oh, I do know somebody. It's not me, trust me. But I knew somebody about 5 or 6 years ago. That's what they were doing. They had like about 15 credit cards. And
oh my goodness.
They got their first credit card. It had a high, where they could spend a lot of money. And they did that. And then, then they realized they couldn't make the payments. So they got more credit cards. So they were buying, their food with the credit cards and all that stuff, taking the food money and paying that first credit card off. And it just kept multiplying until they ended up going bankrupt.
Oh, I can imagine. Because before you know it, that stuff really piles up fast. And then you wake up one day and you got people wanting to take your house, your car, and all your stuff.
Yeah, that's scary. Now, anything new on UFOs? Have you been hearing anything new?
I haven't heard too much new on UFOs at all for some reason. I don't know if it's quiet or just not much coming in. I did hear a story today about a black-eyed child.
Well, let's hear it. Let's go for it.
Okay, this lady, she moved to the United States, I don't know, a few years back, but she's from Ireland, and this happened a few years ago, but she was 15 years old, living in Ireland. She's walking home on a country road, and she noticed something out of the corner of her eyes in the woods. The road's going through the woods, and she sees it out of the corner of her eye. She don't think nothing of it, so she keeps going. And then she sees something out of the corner of her eye again on the other side of the road. And she's walking a little faster. And then she notices something out of the corner of her eye on both corners of her eyes. So she takes off running. And she runs all the way home, gets in the house, shuts the door, and locks it. And she's scared to death that she's going to get yelled at from her parents. But her parents weren't home. She thought that was weird. And so she goes in the kitchen, and about 5 minutes later, she's all nervous and stuff, trying to figure out what was she seeing. And then there's a knock on the door, bang, bang, bang. And she's like, wait a minute. Because where she lived in this little village in Ireland, everybody knew everybody. Nobody knocked. They just come in and said, hey, this is so-and-so. It was just the way it was, And so that got her red flags up real high. And so she didn't answer or say anything, so it kept going, knock, knock, knock. So she goes to the door, but they got a little window, and she peeks out of it and she sees like a girl, 10 to 12 years old, but she's looking down at her feet, not looking up. And she keeps knocking. So the girl says, who is it? What do you want? And the little girl outside, she says, I need to come in. And need to come in. That's all she would say. I need to come in. The lady who's now a lady was a girl then. She kept saying, who do you want me to call? I'll make a phone call for you. And the child kept saying, no, that won't work. I need to come in, which was creepy. So she wouldn't answer. So she finally, ran upstairs and got underneath her blanket. And it kind of reminded me of somebody else.
Yeah, like me.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah.
So she got under her blanket. And it kept going, but finally it stopped. So she went back down, snuck back down, and she looked out and she realized that she'd lost 5 hours of time. 5 hours was lost, like missing time. She'd lost 5 hours because it was dark and it shouldn't have been dark. She just realized that when she looked out the window the second time. And the little girl wasn't at the door no more. She was like 20 feet away sitting on a fence, but she was looking straight at her, and her eyes were all black. And that really freaked her out. So she ran back upstairs and went under the blankets again until her parents come home, and she told her parents, and they just told her she had imagination and everything, But her grandmother told her, her grandmother believed her and said, what you seen was a type of fae, and you're lucky because they grab children or teenagers, young teenagers or whatever, and pull them in the woods, and they never return again. So I thought that was kind of a creepy story. It kind of reminded me of you with the black-eyed children and the blankets when I heard it.
Well, I just the things that for some reason, okay, and I'm an adult, I'm a senior citizen. If I hear something creepy at night and I'm in bed, I just kind of like slowly pull the blanket over my head. Maybe it's just because, hey, I don't want to see what's going to happen.
You know what? If it's not broke, don't fix it. If that's been working for you all these years, keep doing it, Gary. Keep getting under the blanket.
Well, my hat goes out to Sam and his fellows out there that go out in the Cascades. This area, supposedly it has, portals and stuff. I sure wouldn't want to pitch a tent next to a portal.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? Sam has seen some little people. I've seen some pictures that he's put up, and I got to tell you, it's some freaky stuff.
Well, it is, and you can actually make out faces, and you can kind of, make out that what some stuff they're wearing. One he posted, a couple months ago, it looked like he was wearing a helmet of some sort.
Yeah, and you can even see the beard and maybe even a pipe.
Okay, hang on. I think we have Chad on here. Hello, you got Night Dreams Talk Radio. This is Gary. Who do we have?
Hi, Gary. Chad.
Well, hi, Chad. Well, we're ready to go to break here in about 8 minutes. Hey, James, hang around for a few minutes. We got Chad about giant rock. Hey, Chad, how you been? We haven't talked for a long time, my friend.
No, I've been doing good. Doing good, thanks. Yeah.
So you've been staying out of trouble?
I have, or at least as much as I can. It's hard nowadays. You know that, Gary.
Oh, it's real hard about anything to stay out of trouble. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, Gary, out in to all your listeners, I am a direct descendant of a man named George Van Tassel. I grew up at a place called Giant Rock, and I wrote a book and a screenplay about it, and we're still trying to get the movie done. And that's about, as far as in a nutshell, there it is. I mean, I'm a UFO experiencer. I've had my own series of contacts with extraterrestrials. This has been going on since I was 4. So consequently, I can share a lot with your audience about what's going on with this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It seems to be a lot more reports than ever on UFOs, but with so much more on contact, people being abducted too. It is really kind of scary that that amount of people they're claiming that they have been abducted on, and experiments done on them.
Yeah, this is an issue. I mean, there have been several studies that have been done. There's been estimates, especially between the years of 1955 and 1965, that over 5 million people were actually abducted, which is interesting because I happen to be one of them, and I ran into many people that claim that they've actually had their own experiences with the abduction. Most of them they're gigantically frightening from many aspects, but it's frightening because it's so foreign and it's so truly alien to the human consciousness. And the ill will camp, I definitely know that there is certain rogue players within this whole galactic federation that are doing things they shouldn't be doing. But for the most part, it's just that they are monitoring. The extraterrestrials are monitoring us. And in some cases, they actually are doing some engineering to actually improve the species. So, and this is no big, if you ever listen to the story of the Anunnaki and that this kind of goes along the same thread. They literally, we have these, I would call them watchers. Some are benefactors, and they are really interested in keeping this planet intact and helping it along. There's a majority of them. But to go through an experience of an abduction, I would never recommend it to anybody. I remember I was on one radio show, and the guy asked, well, how do I become abducted? And I was a little bit, I stepped back a little bit when they asked the question. And I said, well, what you do is you go out in the desert and you pray and you sing. You do that for a half hour, and then you stand on one leg, and then you hop around, and you do that for a little bit. And then he asked, and there was a big pause. He goes, then what do you do? I said, well, you switch legs. It was just, and there was dead silence over the air because he kind of knew I was teasing. But I have no answer. I mean, it seems to be very, very random. There are a lot of old souls that seem to be of interest. A lot of people of Celtic and Native American, get it, the combination. For some reason, there's an extraordinary amount of people who have mixed Native American and Irish, English and Celtic blood in them. And and the other thing too is, for some reason, green eyes people with green eyes seem to have more experiences than others. So these are the things I've learned over the years, but still there is no rhyme or reason. And I believe that a lot of them are just not accidents, but merely just opportune times. A lot of them happen in remote areas. So if you live in like Travis Walton and some of these other people, if you live out in a remote area, then you're going to have a greater chance of being abducted than if you are in the city. But that doesn't mean that people in the city have not been abducted, because there's been tons and tons of people who have actually been abducted in busy cities, but not as likely as if you're in a remote area like Giant Rock, or somewhere out in the Arizona desert, or other places, a national park. There seems to be a lot of people disappearing in national parks.
Oh, a lot.
So consequently, So it's intriguing. Yeah, it really is. But there's no rhyme or reason. So ideally, that's essentially, for me, when I was putting together the story about this, it's pretty much based on actual events that occurred through members of my own family, my uncle, and my cousins, and particularly me. There's a character called Chase in Giant Rock that essentially I snuck a lot of my own experiences through him, being involved, with the whole UFO too. I got that in there. And, a big part of the story, of course, is my uncle and his gigantic standing within the UFO community, which, he was essentially the leader of the whole UFO contactee movement for probably right shortly after Roswell. So I was there firsthand, meeting a lot of very interesting people, a lot of the pioneers. I got to know them and actually got to talk to most of them before they died, which all of them are dead now, that were actually active out there. But I got a chance to talk to them for some reason, and I wasn't even involved in even thinking about writing a book or anything. And they wanted to talk with me, and so I would make like Captain Bruce Cappy. He's a pretty. He had his own. He's a pilot out of New Zealand. He wanted to. So a lot of these people wanted to talk with me, so I made myself available, and I got to share a lot. They shared a lot of their stories with me and gave me a lot of stuff and told me a lot of events that happened with my uncle. So in that respect, I was blessed, but at the time, I had no idea why I was so blessed. I didn't understand why, but it wasn't until I started, writing the book and doing the screenplay, et cetera, there was a definite reason why to get their story and viewpoint. It was serendipitous for me to be in touch with these people like Gabriel Green. I mean, and I would literally be on the phone with them for hours. Literally hours, and the stories that I was told were just incredible. I mean, it was great. But also, too, I remember as a little kid, too. That was the other interesting thing. I met a lot of these guys from the ages between 5 and 10 and 11, and then it was a big break for me between it. And then about 20 years later, I started coming in contact with them again. So you got to remember that Giant Rock was the epicenter of the UFO contactee movement for probably 20 years. Where literally thousands of people would come out there every year and share stories and commune. And the club is an interesting club because you're kind of kindred spirits with other people who have been abducted. It's easy to talk to somebody else who has been abducted because they have, they understand, and the conversation moves a lot faster and a lot better. So in that many respects, I guess even though my career path was not ufologist or any of that stuff, I ran oil and gas companies and traveled all over the world and did all kinds of different things. But it really, all this stuff came in handy, and especially in tandem with